Hello everybody. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Sorry, I'll just get my hair so it looks a lot more normal. There, that's better. I've been running around doing a whole lot of jobs all over the place, including in town, and so it's like, get the hair out of the way because otherwise it's a nuisance. But other than that, here we are. I'm just going to find the right... No, that's the wrong one, sorry. Background picture, because this is the wrong one. It is, indeed. Just because we are now reading a new book, and this new book is, well, new for us, William Again by Richmal, Crompton, an author that we have had a couple of other books by, about the lovable little young William who's about 11 years old, I think, is the idea. Just trying to decide which of these images to use. Which one is going to look the most like the sort of place where William lives? Something like this, maybe? Just as our background. It's kind of like an English village set in about the era that William was written. I might just try one or two of the other ones. I was hoping to get this all sorted out for you earlier on, but it's been a little bit hectic with me doing all these other bits and pieces. Just a moment. And then we shall get on to the actual reading and me explaining to you, well, those of you who are new, what's going on. And I would tell you now, it's just that my brain is not very good at doing several different things at the same time, unlike some people I know. Some people I know, their brains are really good at that sort of thing. Mine is not very good at it. So I just move that over there so I can sort those by the other setting. I think this one was the one I was originally planning on. Yes, that looks more like a slightly rural village setting that I've always imagined where William would have been living. No curbs, probably a loose metal road on a clay base. Trees alongside, front yards, and then on this side you have hedges and things like that, and front porches, and I'll just leave that in the background there so that you can see it, just to give you a bit of a feel of the sort of place that William would have been set in the stories. Right, so here we go. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Jev. I read old-fashioned children's stories because otherwise nobody reads them. That's as good a reason as any, isn't it? This sort of thing, actually, this old, yes, this old. This one is one that belonged to my great uncle, great uncle, I'm not sure. Anyway, but a lot of the books that I read are ones that belonged to either my parents or my grandparents, and I grew up reading them, and it's great to actually have a bit of fun with reading stuff that's not quite what most people are used to these days. So that's the sort of thing that they are. I have some tips. The first one, tip number one is have yourself something to drink handy, because otherwise you'll get dehydrated and it's not very good for your brain. Tip number two is have something, rattle, something to snack on handy, because that way you won't get distracted as easily because your stomach will be happy. So today I have cheese and crackers, and wonderful, my cheese is not turning into the background behind me because the green screen doesn't see it as green even though it's yellow. Sometimes it does. It's a bit peculiar like that. Anyway, so number one is have a drink handy. Number two is have a snack handy. And number three is have somewhere comfortable to sit, such as a nice comfy cushion. Anyway, just for the laughs. If you're working, if you are studying, if you are doing something like housework or something like that, then you don't have to have somewhere comfortable to sit. I won't actually be checking up on you, but you're most welcome to, if you are doing those things, to just have me chattering away in the background while you are doing your thing. I don't actually require you to be giving me your full attention. But if you are here, if you're happy for me to say hi to you, and you are... yes, that's my mouse clicking in the background. Sorry about that. If you're happy for me to say hi to you, and other than that, wanting to just sit in the background watching what's going on, listening to the story, then you're most welcome to use the lurk command, which is !lurk, L-U-R-K, no capital letters, no spaces, and then the nice friendly little bot that I have doing that sort of thing on the channel will actually put something in the chat box for you, just to say hi, basically. Nothing apart from that. I'm just going to unlock my phone so I can see what that's doing, because sometimes it's a good idea to actually have something that you can see that is not tied up with your computer system for keeping an eye on things. I thought I had everything sorted once again, but not, apparently. If you're here and watching on Twitch, then obviously you're watching me going to be reading to you live, unless you're watching the video, but that's okay. If you are not on Twitch, then I'm going to assume that you're watching this on YouTube, in which case there will not be a chat box alongside over here. There will actually be a comment section down below, and you're most welcome to use that, and also use the like button. That way YouTube knows that people actually do listen to the stories, and are happy to listen to the stories. And either way, subscribe to the channel, because both of those services will tell you when I go live or have put up a new video. And then you can keep up with the new stories. So here we go. We are going to be reading William Again by Richmal Crompton, written in 1923. Well, first published in 1923. All of the William books are set around the same time period, even though they were written eventually over quite a long time period. William always stays about the same age in the stories. Just one of those things. And we shall carry on with reading. Here we go. Chapter 1, What Delayed the Great Man? William, taking his character as a whole, was not of the artistic genre. I would say that, yeah, fairly definitely. He had none of the shrinking sensitiveness and delicate imaginativeness of the true artist, but the fact remains that this summer he was impelled by some inner prompting to write a play. The idea had been growing in his mind for some time. He had seen plays acted by the village amateur dramatic society, which was famous more for a touching reliance on the prompter than for any real histrionic talent. William had considered them perfect. He had decided after their last performance to go on the stage, but none of his friends could inform him of the preliminary steps necessary for getting on the stage. It is true that the man in the boot shop, whose second cousin was a scene shifter in a provincial music hall, had promised to use his influence, but when William was told the next week that the second cousin had been dismissed for appearing in a state of undeniable intoxication and insisting on accompanying the heroine onto the stage, he felt that all hopes from that direction must be abandoned. It was then that he had the brilliant idea. He would write a play himself and act in that. William had great confidence in his own powers. He had no doubts whatsoever of his ability to write a play and act in it. If he couldn't go on the stage, he'd go on a stage. Surely no one could object to that. All he'd want would be some paper and ink and a few clothes. Surely his family, bent as they always were on clouding his moments of purest happiness, couldn't object to that. Just ink and paper and a few old clothes, he said wistfully to his mother, She eyed him with a mistrust that was less the result of a suspicious nature than of 11 years' experience of her younger son. He's got an older brother and an older sister, which may or may not come into our stories as we go. Each chapter is an adventure in itself, with common characters between them, mainly William's family and small circle of friends, but various other members of the local village as well. Yes, we'll carry on. She eyed him with a mistrust that was less the result of a suspicious nature than of 11 years' experience of her younger son. "Won't pencil do?" she asked. "Pencil?" he said scornfully. Did Shakespeare or the man what wrote the Red Gang, well, did they write in pencil?" Mrs. Brown, having no knowledge of the subject, shifted her point of attack. "What sort of clothes will you want?" she said. "Oh, just clothes," said William vaguely. "Yes, but what sort?" "How can I tell," said William irritably, "till I've wrote the play?" William's family long remembered the silence and peace that marked the next few afternoons. During them, William, outstretched upon the floor of the summer house, wrote his play with a liberal application of ink over his person and clothes and the surrounding woodwork. William was not of that class of authors who neglect the needs of the body. After every few words he took a deep draught from a bottle of orange ale. That would be like a type of soft drink of some sort. Yeah. Going to be causing some problems. Deep draught from a bottle of orange ale that stood on his right, and a bite from an ink-coated apple on his left. He had laid in a store of apples and sweets and chocolates under the seat of the summer house for his term of authorship. Every now and then he raised a hand to his frowning brow in thought, leaving upon it yet another imprint of his ink-sodden fingers. "Where is he?" said his father in hushed wonder at the unwanted peace. Unexpected type unwanted, not unwanted, but unwanted. It's a different meaning entirely. "He's in the summer house writing a play," said his wife. That's William's mother. "I hope it's a nice long one," said her husband. He's enjoying the quiet. It's not a common thing when William is around. William had assembled his cast and assigned them their parts. Little Molly Carter was to be the heroine, Ginger the hero, Henry the hero's friend, Douglas a crowd of outlaws. William himself was to be the villain, stage manager and prompter. He handed them their parts with a lofty frown. The parts were in a grimy exercise book. "It's all wrote out," he said. "You just learn it where it says your names. Molly's Lady Lisabina." "Lisabina isn't a name I've heard," said that lady pertly. "I didn't say it was, did I?" said William coldly. "I shouldn't be surprised if there was lots of names you've never heard of. And Ginger is Sir Rufus Archibald Green, and Henry is the Honourable Lord Leopold, and I'm Carlo Rupino, a villain. All you've got to do is learn your parts, and Wednesday morning we'll go through it just to practice it, and Wednesday afternoon we'll do it." "We can't three learn out of one book," said the leading lady, who was inclined to make objections. Sorry, the rattling is me getting crackers out of my packet because I didn't get them out before. Sorry. Anyway, I'll carry on. "We can't three learn out of one book," said the leading lady, who was inclined to make objections. "Yes, you can," said William. "You can take turns sitting in the middle." Lady Elizabina sniffed. "And such writing," she said scornfully. "Well, I don't count on my fingers," said William, returning scorn for scorn. I think somebody counts on their fingers still. "Not so's everyone can see me, at any rate," he said, at which public allusion to her arithmetical powers, Lady Elizabina took refuge in another sniff followed by a haughty silence. The rehearsal was not an unqualified success. The heroine, as is the way of heroines, got out of bed the wrong side. After a stirring domestic scene during which she bit her nurse and flung a basin of bread and milk upon the floor, she arrived tearful and indignant and half an hour late at the rehearsal. So obviously things aren't going so well for her. "Can't you come a bit later?" said the stage manager bitterly. "If you're going to be nasty to me," returned the heroine stormily, "I'm going back home." "All right," muttered the stage manager, cowed, like most stage managers, by the threatening of tears. The first item on the agenda was the question of the wardrobe. I'm just wondering if I do actually have some illustrations for this book. And I'm just wondering if the copy that I'm reading from actually has the same illustrations in it for me to be able to show you at the right time. We'll see. Okay, sorry about that. It's just I happen to know that this book actually does have some illustrations. The first item on the agenda was the question of the wardrobe. William had received an unpleasant surprise which considerably lowered his faith in human nature generally. On paying a quiet and entirely informal visit to his sister's bedroom in her absence to collect some articles of festive female attire for his heroine, he had found every drawer and even the wardrobe locked. His sister had kept herself informed of the date of the performance and had taken measures accordingly. He had collected only a crochet-edged towel, one of the short lace curtains from the window, and a drawn thread work toilet cover. Otherwise his search was barren. Passing through the kitchen, however, he found one of her silk petticoats on a clothes horse and added it to his plunder. He found various other articles in other parts of the house. The dressing up took place in an outhouse that had once been a stable at the back of William's house. The heroine's dress consisted of Ethel's silk petticoat with holes cut for the arms. The lace curtain formed an effective headdress, and the toilet cover pinned onto the end of the petticoat made a handsome train. The effect was completed by the crochet-edged towel pinned around her waist. Sir Rufus Archibald Green, swathed in an Indian-embroidered table cover, with a black satin cushion pinned onto his chest, a tea cosy on his head, and an umbrella in his hand, looked a princely hero. The Honourable Lord Leopold wore the dining-room tablecloth, and the morning-room waste-paper basket, with a feather forcibly wrested from the cock's tail, that's the rooster, by William, protruded jauntily from the middle. Douglas, as the crowd, was simply attired in William's father's top hat and a mackintosh. That's like a raincoat. William had quietly abstracted the top hat as soon as he heard definitely that his father would not be present at the performance. William's father was to preside at a political meeting in the village hall, which was to be addressed by a great man from the cabinet, who was coming down from London specially for the occasion. For those of you who are not from a British background, the cabinet is part of the governing system of government. There you go. Vast as are the attractions of any enterprise promoted by you, William, he said politely at breakfast, duty calls me elsewhere. William, while murmuring perfunctory sorrow at these tidings, hastily ran over in his mind various articles of his father's attire that could therefore be safely utilised. The robing of William himself as the villain had cost him much care and thought. He had finally decided upon the drawing-room rug pinned across his shoulder and a fern pot on his head. It was a black china fern pot and rather large, but it rested upon William's ears and gave him a commanding and sinister appearance. He also carried an umbrella. These preparations took longer than the cast had foreseen, and when finally large moustaches had been corked upon the heroes, villains, and crowd's lips, the lunch bell sounded from the hall. corked. To make a dark smudge upon the skin, you burnt the end of a cork, which charred it, and then you rubbed it on your skin. And it was a very common usage for drawing moustaches and other dark things on people's skin as part of play. The lunch bell sounded from the hall. "Just all finished in time," said William the optimist. "Yes, but what about the rehearsal?" said the crowd gloomily. "What about that?" "Well, you've had the book to learn the stuff," said William. "That's enough, isn't it? I don't suppose real acting people bother with rehearsals. It's quite easy. You just learn your stuff and then say it. It's silly wasting time over rehearsals." "Have you learnt what you say, William Brown?" said the heroine shrilly. "I know what I say," said William loftily. "I don't need to learn." "William," called a stern, sisterly voice from the house, "Mother says come and get ready for lunch." William merely ejected his tongue in the direction of the voice and made no answer. "We'd better be taking off the things," he said, "so's to be in time for this afternoon. 2:30 it begins, and then we can have a nice long go at it. Put all the things away carefully behind that box so's bothering old people can't get at 'em and make a fuss." "William, where are you?" called the voice impatiently. The tone goaded William into reply. "I'm somewhere where you can't find me," he said. "You're in the stable," said the voice triumphantly. "Seems as if folks simply couldn't leave me alone," said William wistfully as he removed his fern pot and fur rug and walked with slow dignity into the house. "Wash yourself first," said the obnoxious voice. "I am washed," returned William coldly as he entered the dining room, forgetting the presence of a smudgy corked moustache upon his lips and cheeks. It was an unfortunate afternoon as far as the prospects of a large audience were concerned. Most of the adults of the place, that's the village, were going to listen to the great man. Most of the juveniles were going to watch a football match. Moreover, the cast, with the instincts of the very young, had shrouded the enterprise so deeply in mystery in order to enjoy the sensation of superiority that they had omitted to mention either the exact nature of the enterprise or the time at which it would take place. On the side gate was pinned a notice, "This way to the bloody hand." And here you do actually have a picture. This way to the bloody hand. Obviously, that's the name of the play. In the stable was a row of old chairs, all turned out, you might as well leave that there, all turned out of the house at various times because of broken backs and legs. As a matter of fact, the cast were little concerned with the audience. The great point was that they were going to act a play. They scarcely cared whether anyone watched it or not. Upon a broken chair in the middle sat a small child, attracted by the notice. Her chair had only lost one leg, so by sitting well onto one side, she managed to maintain an upright position on it. At a stern demand for money from William, she had shyly slipped a halfpenny into the fern pot, which served the double purpose of headgear and pay desk. She now sat, an enthralled spectator, while the cast dressed and argued before her. Outside, down the road, came the great man. He had come by an earlier train by mistake and was walking slowly towards the village hall, intensely bored by the prospect of the afternoon. He stopped suddenly, arrested by a notice on a side gate, "This way to the bloody hand." He took out his watch. 30 minutes to spare. He hesitated a moment, then walked firmly towards the bloody hand. Inside an outhouse, a group of curiously dressed children stared at him unsmilingly. One of them, who was dressed in a rug and a fern pot, addressed him with a stern frown. Oh, here we go. Here's a picture. Yay! I'm really delighted that actually my book is actually going to show you what the pictures are. The same as the ones that I have to show you, and I shall make it so it fits. There you go, and I'll move over a little. Inside an outhouse, a group of curiously dressed children stared at him unsmilingly. There you go. There's the rug, there's the fern pot. There's the waste paper basket with the feather. There's William's father's top hat. All sorts of things. Oh, and there's William with the umbrella. And this is the gentleman who's come from Parliament to talk to the villagers, the adults. We'll carry on. We're just going to begin, he said. Sit down. This is the one of them, who was dressed in a rug and a fern pot, addressed him with a stern frown. The great man sat down obediently and promptly collapsed onto the floor. I hadn't been warned about the chairs. You shouldn't have sat on a chair with 2 legs gone, said William impatiently. You've broke it all together now. You can manage all right if you try one with only 1 gone. We're just going to begin. The great man picked himself up and his hat and sat down carefully upon the furthermost edge of a 3-legged chair. William, holding the mangled remains of an exercise book in his hand, strode forward. The Bloody Hand by William Brown, he announced in a resonant voice. Well, and what about us? Said the heroine shrilly. You didn't write it, did you? Said William. I'm only saying who wrote it. Well, aren't you going to say who acts it? She said pugnaciously. No, I'm not, said the stage manager firmly. You just say the one what wrote it. You don't go on saying all them what acts it. Well, I'm not going to be in it then, she said. I'm going home. William decided to be a woman-hater for the rest of his life. All right, he capitulated. If you're going to be so disagreeable, just like a girl. He strode forward again and raised his voice. The Bloody Hand, wrote every bit of it, by William Brown, acted by Molly Carter and Ginger and Douglas and Henry. They just learned what William Brown wrote. Now, if you'll be quiet a minute, he went on to his silent audience. We'll begin. You begin, he said to the damsel in the lace curtain. She advanced. The rest of them stood in a corner and watched. She's on, William announced to the audience. We're off. Go on, he said to her. I'm just going to, she replied irritably, soon as you stop talking. Then, changing her voice to one of shrill artificiality, Ho! Where am I? Lost in a dreadful forest. It's meant to be a forest, explained the author to the audience, setting the scene. I wish you'd stop keeping on saying these things, said the heroine. I forgot where I am. Lost in a dreadful forest. What shall I do? Ah, me. Crumbs. Who is this who yawns upon my sight? Dawns, corrected the prompter. A fierce villain, went on the heroine, ignoring him. Methinks I shouldn't be surprised if it wasn't Carlo Rupino of the Bloody Hand. Oh, Lord, what shall I do? Ah, me, he draws near. It is him, prompted William. I was just going to say that if you wouldn't keep on interrupting. It is him. I was just going to say, ah, me, what shall I do? Whither shall I flee? Nowhere, gadzooks, he draws nearer. I come on now, explained William to the audience, holding onto his plant pot with one hand to steady it. I'm him. He advanced threateningly upon the maiden. Aha, he sneered. Gadzooks, dost thou happen to know who I am? I am Carlo Rupino of the Bloody Hand. Go on, faint, he urged in an undertone. If you think I'm going to faint on this dirty old floor, she replied, I'm just not. You should have brushed it up a bit if you wanted me to faint on it. You don't know how to, he jeered. I do, I can faint beautifully on our drawing-room carpet. I'm just not going to faint on a dirty old stable floor, and I'm not going to be in your nasty old play if you're not going to be nice to me. All right, then, don't be. You just take off my sister's petticoat and our lace curtain and don't be in it if you don't want to be. Well, I just won't, if you're going to be like this at me. Well, if you keep on talking not out of the play, who's to know when you're talking the play and when you're just talking yourself? Anyone with any sense, she started. Oh, get on with it, said the hero, off the scenes. You'll never get to where I come in if you're going to keep going on like this all day. Pretend she's fainted and go on from there. All right, said the villain obligingly. Aha, I hast thee in my power. I wilt hang thee ere dawn dawns from my remote mountain lair. The toilet cover train caught on a nail, and the petticoat tore with an echoing sound. "That's right," he went on. "Go on messing up my sister's things so she'll never be able to wear them again." That's William talking to her as the manager. "If you're going to keep on being nasty to me," said the heroine again, "I'm going straight back home and I'm not going to be in your old play." "Well, anyway," said William with a mental determination that his next play should contain no heroines, "now we go off and they come on." The hero and his friend advanced. "Alas," said Sir Rufus Archibald Green, "I see no trace of her. What canst have happened to her? I hope she has not met yon horrible old villain, Carlo Rupino of the Bloody Hand. Seest thou any footmarks of her, the Honourable Lord Leopold?" The Honourable Lord Leopold examined the stable floor. "Looking for footmarks," explained the stage manager to the audience. "Ah me, none," said the Honourable Lord Leopold, then looking more closely. "Crikey, yes," he said, "I seest footmarks. 'Tis hers and Carlo Rupino's. I knowest their boots." "Ah me," said the hero, "what catastrophe is here? Gadzooks, let us follow to his remote mountain lair. I will kill him dead and cut out his foul black heart and put an end to his foul black life." He waved Mrs. Brown's best umbrella threateningly as he spoke. "Now they come off," explained William, "and we come on. Here's the gallows." He carried forward a small reading stand taken from his father's study, then advanced, holding the hand of the fair Elizabina. The crowd in his top hat and mackintosh stood in attendance. "Aha," said Carlo Rupino to his victim, "I hast thee in my power, thou old girl. I am now going to hang thee from yon lofty gallows. Go on." He addressed the crowd. The crowd took off his top hat and uttered a feeble "Hooray!" "You couldn't hang me from that old thing," remarked the heroine scornfully. "That's not in the play," said William. "I know it isn't. I'm just saying that myself." "Well, say what's in the play." At that point, the chair upon which the great man was with difficulty sitting collapsed suddenly, precipitating the great man among its fragments. William turned upon him sternly. "If you're going to keep on making noises, breaking chairs," he said, "how do you think we're going to get on?" The great man raised himself from the debris with a murmured apology, brushed himself as well he could, and sat down quietly upon an adjacent packing case. "Well, go on," said William to the heroine. "Something about 'Oh, mercy, spare me,' and then I forgot what comes after that." "Well, why didn't you learn it?" "I can't read your nasty old writing, all blots and things spilt on it." "Well, you can't write a play at all, so you needn't go making remarks about people's writing that can." "Oh, go on," said the egotistical hero off the stage. "Let's get to where I come on." Sorry, just my chair is moving slightly. William studied his exercise book carefully. "Here's what you say," he said. "Oh, mercy, spare me." "I said that," she said. "Be quiet." "Oh, mercy, spare me." "I said that." "Be quiet." "Oh, mercy, spare me, and let me return to my dear old mother and father and the young gentleman what I'm going to marry. His name is Sir Rufus Archibald Green." That's what you say. "Well, you've said it, so I needn't say it all over again." "If you think I'm going to say all your stuff for you," began William. Elizabina, bored with the question, pointed an accusing finger at the great man. "Look at him," she said. "He's coming without paying any money." Overcome by embarrassment, the great man hastily took out a case and handed a 10-shilling note to William. A half-crown would have won rapturous gratitude. A 10-shilling note was beyond their ken. The entire cast gathered round it. "It's paper money," said Douglas, impressed. "Don't suppose it's real," said William gloomily. "Well, where'd we got to?" He turned quickly and the fern pot descended sharply, extinguishing his head. He struggled with it, without success. "Can't anyone do anything?" said his muffled voice from inside the fern pot. "I can't go on acting like this. People can't see me." "Well, isn't anyone going to do anything?" The cast pulled, without success. I didn't say pull my head off, said the stern, sarcastic voice from inside the pot. I said pull the thing off. The great man arose from his packing case and came to the rescue. Finally, William's face appeared. William put his hands to his head. Anyone would think you wanted to pull my nose and ears off the way you did it, he said. Now, let's get on. He turned to the heroine. No, I will not spare thee. I hatest thy mother and thy father and the young gentleman thou ist going to marry. Thy mother, thy father, and the young gentleman thou ist going to marry wilt see thy lifeless body dangling on my remote mountain lair ere dawn dawns. Gadzooks! Now go on, scream. The heroine screamed. The crowd took... Sorry, I'm laughing because I've just seen that the closed captioner actually does cope with gadzooks. The heroine screamed. The crowd took off his top hat and cheered. I will keep thee in a dark dungeon with all sorts of rats and things crawling about till even, and then, he consulted his exercise book, and then I forgot this bit and I can't read what comes next. Yeah! Yelled the heroine in shrill triumph. Shut up, retorted William. Now you come on, he said to the hero. Let's do the rest as quick as we can. I'm getting a bit tired of it. Let's go down to the pond and race boats when we've done. Golly, yes, let's, said the crowd enthusiastically. Girls won't be allowed, said William to Elizabina. Elizabina elevated her small nose. As if I wanted to sail boats, she said scornfully. William's father... And there's a pause there. William's father entered the house hastily. Surely the meeting isn't over, dear, said William's mother. He hasn't come, said Mr. Brown. Everybody's waiting. We met the train, but he wasn't on it. The station master says he came by an earlier one and walked up, but no one can find him. He must have lost his way. William seems to have collected an old tramp in the stable, said Mrs. Brown. He may have seen him on the road. I'll go and see, said Mr. Brown. In the stable a fight was going on between his son in a fur rug and his son's friend in a tablecloth and a tea cosy. Upon both faces were the remains of corked moustaches. A broken fern pot and a battered top hat were on the floor. Another boy in a mackintosh and a little girl in a lace curtain were watching. Hang on, and here we have another picture. I just have to open it for you. Thou beastly old robber, Douglas was shouting, I will kill thee dead and cut out thy foul black heart. Nay, yelled his son, this is Mr. Brown's son, William, I will hang thee from my mountain ere dawn dawns and thy body shall dangle from the gallows. A wistful-looking old man on a packing case was an absorbed spectator of the proceedings. When he saw William's father, he took out his watch with a guilty start. Surely, he said, I'd no idea. Heavens! He picked up his hat and almost ran. The great man rose to address the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I must begin by apologising for my late arrival, he said with dignity. I have been unavoidably delayed. He tried not to meet William's father's eye as he made the statement. And that's the end of that chapter. We shall have another one, but we're just going to have a wee break. I'm going to have something to eat, which will be noisy, so I'm going to turn my microphone off. Here you go. Sorry about that. My crackers tend to be rather noisy. And since we're not doing an ASMR food channel, I tend to turn the microphone off. So, here we go. Are you having fun? I hope so. I am. It's been a while since we've read a William story, and they really are a little bit amusing. Right, here we go. Carrying on. Chapter 2, The Cure. And for those of you who have just arrived, this is William again by Richmal Crompton, published in 1923. Chapter 2, The Cure. Breakfast was not William's favourite meal. With his father shut off from the world by his paper, and his mother by her letters, one would have thought that he would have enjoyed the clear field... Sorry, itchy nose. No, I have not been cuddling the cat. The clear field left for his activities, but William liked an audience, even a hostile one consisting of his own family. True, Robert, that's his older brother, and Ethel... Oh, sorry, I should just read it because she'll explain it. True, Robert and Ethel, his elder brother and sister, were there, but Robert's great rule in life was to ignore William's existence. Robert would have preferred not to have a small, freckled, snub-nosed brother. But as fate had given him such a brother, the next best thing was to pretend that he did not exist. On the whole, William preferred to leave Robert alone, and Ethel was awful at breakfast, quite capable of summoning the head of the family from behind his Daily Telegraph when William essayed a little gentle teasing. This morning, William, surveying his family in silence in the intervals of making a very hearty meal, came to the conclusion, not for the first time, that they were hardly worthy of him. Ethel thinking she was so pretty in that stuck-up-looking dress, and grinning over that letter from that soft girl. Robert talking about football and nobody listening to him, and glaring at him, William, whenever he tried to tell him what nonsense he was talking about. No, it wasn't rounders he was thinking of. He knew about football, thank you. He just did. Suddenly his mother put down her letter. Great Aunt Jane's very ill, she said. There was a sudden silence. Mr. Brown's face appeared above the Daily Telegraph. He said. Great Aunt Jane's very ill, said Mrs. Brown. They don't seem to think there's much chance of her getting better. They say, she looked again at the letter as if to make quite sure, they say she wants to see William. She's never seen him, you know. There was a gasp of surprise. Robert voiced the general sentiment. Good Lord, he said, fancy anyone wanting to see William. When they're dying too, said Ethel in equal horror. One would think they'd like to die in peace anyway. It hardly seems fair, went on Robert, to show William to anyone who's not strong. William glared balefully from one to the other. Children, murmured Mrs. Brown. How, said Mr. Brown, are you going to get William over to Ireland? I suppose, said Mrs. Brown, that someone must take him. Good Lord, who? Yes, who? Echoed the rest of the family. I can't possibly leave the office for the next few weeks, said Mr. Brown hastily, a little bit worried that he's going to have to take William to Ireland to see Great Aunt, whatever her name was. Do we remember? Great Aunt Jane. Oh dear. I simply couldn't face the crossing alone, much less with William, said Ethel. I've got my finals coming off next year, said Robert. I don't want to waste any time. I'm working rather hard these vacations. No one, said his father politely, would have noticed it. Robert's not really working that hard then. I can go alone, thank you, said William with icy dignity. In the end, William and Mrs. Brown crossed to Ireland together. I don't think I've had a William story where he's not based near his own village. If William drops overboard, was Robert's parting shot. Don't worry. He really does not appreciate having a little brother. The crossing was fairly eventful. William, hanging over the edge of the steamer, overbalanced and was rescued from a watery grave by one of the crew who happened to be standing near and who caught him by his trousers as the overbalancing occurred. William was far from grateful. "Pulling and tugging at me," he said, "and I was all right. I was only just looking over the edge. I'd have got back all right." But the member of the crew made life hideous to Mrs. Brown. "You know, lady," he muttered, "when I saved your little boy's life, I gave myself such a wrench. I can feel it in me innards now." As it were, hastily she gave him 10 shillings. Yet she could not stem the flow. "I hope, lady," he would continue at intervals, "when that child's grown to be a man, you'll think sometimes of the poor old man what saved his life at the expense of his own innards, as you might say, when he were a little un." A speech like that always won half a crown. In the end, Mrs. Brown spent her time avoiding him. So it sounds like this is how this guy makes a little bit of extra income. And fleeing whenever she saw him coming along the deck. When a meeting was inevitable, she hastily gave him the largest coin she could find before he could begin on his innards. Meanwhile, a passenger had discovered William neatly balanced through a porthole and earned his undying hatred by hauling him in and depositing him upside down on the floor. "Seems to me," said William to his mother, "that all these folks have come for is to stop other folks having a good time. What do you come on a boat for if you can't look at the sea? That's all I want to know." A gale rose and Mrs. Brown, pale and distraught, sat huddled up on the deck. William hovered round sympathetically. "I got some chocolate creams in my other coat. Like some of them?" "William, dear, don't bother to stay here. I'd just as soon you went away and played." "Oh, no," said William nobly. "I won't leave you feeling bad." The boat gave a lurching heave. Mrs. Brown groaned. "Think you're going to be sick, mother?" said William with interest. I don't know. Wouldn't you like to go over to the other side for a change?" William wandered away. Soon he returned, holding in his hands 2 doughnuts, masses of yellow, greasy-looking dough, bearing the impress of William's grimy fingers. "I've got us one each," said William cheerfully. "You must be awfully hungry, mother." I'm sorry, I have to give you the picture for this one. And I'll have to resize it a little so you can see it. Mrs. Brown gave one glance and turned towards the sea, away from William. Obviously, the way this is illustrated is wrong. So here's William with the 2 doughnuts clenched in his hands, there and there, holding them out to William's mother, who's sitting on the deck chair, desperately trying to get her stomach to settle, not able to do anything about it at the moment. In Great Aunt Jane's drawing room, so therefore we've actually finished that section, were assembled Uncle John and Aunt Lucy and Cousin Francis. Francis was about the same age as William, but inordinately fat and clad in white. He had fair curls and was the apple of his parents' eye. I think that's Uncle John and Aunt Lucy. They had heard of William, but none of them had seen him. There was a murmur of excitement as the sound of the taxi was heard. Then William and his mother entered. Mrs. Brown was still pale from the crossing. William followed her, scowling defiantly at the world in general. "If you have any brandy," said Mrs. Brown faintly. "Brandy?" said William cheerfully. "I never thought of that. I got you nearly everything else, didn't I? I wanted to tempt her to eat," he explained to the company. "I thought of chocolates and cakes and cocoa and pork pies. I kept asking her to try the pork pie. There was some lovely ones on the boat, but I never thought of brandy. Have a good drink of it, mother," he encouraged her, "and then try and have a go at the chocolates." Mrs. Brown shivered slightly and sipped the brandy. "This, William," said Aunt Lucy, "is your Cousin Francis." Cousin Francis held out his hand. "How do you do, William?" William took the proffered hand. "How do you do?" he said loudly, and added, sotto voce, "Fatty." Thus war declared. Mrs. Brown was feeling better. "How is Great Aunt Jane?" she said. "Sinking," said Uncle John in a voice of deepest gloom. "Sinking fast, sinking fast." William's expression grew animated. "Where is she?" he said. "Is she out in the sea?" "Little boys," said Uncle John still gloomily, "should be seen and not heard." At this point the nurse entered. "She can see the little boy now," she said, "if he's come." "Then let the children go together," suggested Aunt Lucy. "Excellent," said Uncle John in his hushed, sepulchral voice. "Excellent. Together." It sounds like Aunt Jane may have some money and they're hoping for it. William and Francis went upstairs behind the nurse. The bedroom was large and dim. At the far end lay Great Aunt Jane, propped up in a high, old-fashioned bed. The nurse took them across. "I only wanted to see William," said Great Aunt Jane feebly. The other need not have come. "So, this is Margaret's youngest, is it? I've seen the others, Robert and Ethel, but I haven't seen this one. I didn't want to die without seeing all my family. He's not as beautiful as Francis, but he's less fat. Do you trail clouds of glory, William? Francis trails clouds of glory." "Clouds of fat, more like," said William, who was beginning to be bored by the whole affair. Great Aunt Jane closed her eyes. "I'm going to rest a little," she said. "You can stay here and give me anything I want while nurse goes to have her tea." The nurse went. Great Aunt Jane fell asleep. William and Francis were left alone in the dim bedroom, sitting on chairs, one on each side of the big bed, as the nurse had placed them. The silence grew oppressive. William fidgeted, then opened hostilities. "Hello, fatty," he whispered over Great Aunt Jane's recumbent form. "If you call me that again," whispered Francis, "I'll tell my mother. If you went telling tales of me, I'd pull your long hair off," said William. Francis searched in his mind, silent for a few minutes, for a suitable term of opprobrium. "Freckles," he hissed across the bed at last. "Softy," returned William. This was warfare after his own heart. This is the way he likes to do it. Sorry, I'm just scrolling the pictures that I have on my other monitor to see if I've got another one coming up. "If I got hold of you, I could throw you out of the window." "You couldn't. You'd just roll about. You couldn't throw anything. You're too fat." "I told you what I'd do if you called me that again." Tell-tale, silly old tell-tale," said William. Still the deadly insults were being hurled across the bed in whispers, and still Great Aunt Jane slept. "I could bash your old freckled face in," whispered Francis. "I could knock your old long-haired head off," said William. "I could pull your ears out," said Francis. "Come on then, have a try," said William. "Come on yourself," said Francis. Worked up to fighting pitch, they stole round their corners of the bed to the open space at the foot. Then they hurled themselves upon each other. I'm going to find you the next picture because there is one. They fought with fierce satisfaction, tearing at each other's hair, punching each other's heads, squirming and rolling on the floor. Suddenly they became aware of a spectator. Great Aunt Jane was sitting up in bed, her cheeks flushed, her eyes bright. "Go it, William," she said. "Get one in on his nose. That's right, fatty. Well fended, William. Go on, William. Another. No biting, fatty. Go on." Oh dear, there were footsteps on the stairs. "Quick," said Great Aunt Jane. They darted to their seats, smoothing their hair as they went. The nurse entered. "Whatever," she began, then looked around the peaceful room. "Oh, it must have been in the street." Great Aunt Jane opened her eyes. "I feel much better," she said. "Ever so much better." "You look better," said the nurse. "I hope the children were good." "Good as gold," said Great Aunt Jane, with the ghost of a wink at William. "Look at them," said the nurse, smiling, "both purple in the face with holding their breaths. They'd better go now." Again Great Aunt Jane winked at William. Downstairs Uncle John was standing, gloomy as ever, by the fireplace. "How is she?" he said as they entered. "I think she's rising a bit," said William. And that's the end of that section. "What did you say he did this morning?" said Great Aunt Jane to the nurse. "He got up early," said the nurse, "and found a mouse in the mouse trap. He put it into a cardboard box and almost covered the creature in cheese and made holes in the lid and put it into his pocket. He wanted to keep it. Then the thing gnawed its way out at breakfast and stampeded the whole table. It ran over Francis, and he yelled, and his father nearly fainted." William was much annoyed. He said he'd meant to teach it tricks. "It was yesterday, wasn't it?" said Great Aunt Jane, "that he dared Fatty to walk on the edge of the rain tub, and he overbalanced and fell in." "Yes, and Fatty got in a temper and bit him, and they fought and rolled down the bank together into the pond," said the nurse. "And Tuesday?" "Tuesday he brought the scarecrow in from the field in the evening and put it in front of the fire, where his uncle usually stands, and it was rather dark, and they hadn't lit it yet, and his aunt came in and talked to it for quite a long time before she discovered. She's rather short-sighted, you know. "There was a terrible scuffle going on somewhere last night," said Great Aunt Jane eagerly. "Oh yes, his Uncle John went downstairs about 11 for a book he'd forgotten, and William heard him and thought he was a burglar and attacked him from behind. They fell downstairs on top of each other, and then William got his uncle rolled up in the hall rug with a pair of gloves in his mouth and his eyeglasses broken before he found out who it was. He's a curious boy." Sorry, I'm just going to find this picture. I'm sure this is what the next picture is. There you go. There's William launching himself at his uncle in the dark. Great Aunt Jane was sitting up and looking quite bright. He certainly lends an interest to life. I feel ever so much better since he came. You might send him up now if he's in, nurse, will you?" On her way down, the nurse met Uncle John. "How long is this young ruffian going to be here?" he said furiously. William had successfully dispelled the air of hallowed gloom from the house. "He's sent my nerves to pieces already. What his effect on that poor sufferer must be." "He seems to be strengthening hers," said the nurse. "She's just sent for him." "That means a few minutes' peace for the rest of the house at any rate," he said. William entered the sick room sullenly. He was thoroughly bored with life. Even his enemy, Fatty, was not to be found. Fatty retired every afternoon with his mother to lie down. "Good afternoon, William," said Great Aunt Jane. "Are you enjoying your visit?" "Well," said William vaguely, striving to temper truth with politeness. "I wouldn't mind going home now. I've had enough." He sat down on her bed and became confidential. "We've been here for weeks and weeks." "4 days," amended Aunt Jane. "Well, 4 days then," said William, "and there's nothing left to do, and they make a fuss if I make a noise, and I've got a lizard in a box at home, and I'm trying to teach it tricks, and it'll have forgotten me if I stay here much longer. It was just getting to know me, I could tell by its eyes, and they might forget to feed it or anything. There's nothing to do here, and Mother's not been well since the sea made her sick, and I keep saying, why wait till she's all right to go back? 'Cause the sea makes her sick again. Better to go back while she's feeling bad and get it all over again without the fuss of getting all right and then getting bad again. And I keep saying, why are we stopping here and stopping here and stopping here, and everyone saying, shh, when you make a noise or sing or anything? I say, why?" Great Aunt Jane's sunken lips were quivering, her eyes twinkling. "And why are you stopping and stopping and stopping?" "She says 'cause you're not out of danger and we must stop till we know which way it is." "Well," he waxed still more confidential, "what I say is, surely you know which way you're going to be. Can't you tell us? Then if you're going to get better, we'll go, and if you're not, yes, "What then?" said Aunt Jane. "Then we'll go too. You don't want me hanging round when you're dying," he said coaxingly. "I'd like as not make a noise or something and disturb you, and that lizard might have got out if I go waiting here much more, like what that mouse did." Great Aunt Jane drew a breath, a deep breath of utter content. "You're too priceless to be true, William," she said. "Can't you tell me which way?" said William ingratiatingly. "Yes," said Great Aunt Jane. "I'm going to get better." "Oh, crumbs," he said joyfully. "Can I go and tell Mother to pack?" "You've turned the corner," said the doctor to Great Aunt Jane an hour later. "We needn't worry about you any more. All these relations of yours can pack up and go." "William's packed already," said the nurse. "That boy is a cure." Great Aunt Jane laughed. "Yes, he's a cure, all right," she said. There you go. For once he didn't get into trouble with somebody, and somebody appreciated his shenanigans. There you go. Wonderful. I did enjoy that. I hope you did too. We'll be back next time with more from William again, and we will be starting with chapter 3 called That Boy, and we'll see how it goes from there. In the meantime, I hope you have lots of fun. I hope you remain well or improve if your health hasn't been too good. You're most welcome to go to my YouTube channel and listen to some other stories if you have not done that before. A little bit of light entertainment for you. They're definitely not audio books. I tend to ramble too much for that, and I often get lost on the page, but hey, it's all in fun. And we'll see you next time, and in the meantime, happy reading. Bye.